Hey, you could have watched this video a day early. Check out my Patreon for more details. All right, I guess. I'll talk about the Linux video, but just know this is your fault. So in case you're still not fully aware of the situation, Linus Tech Tips just released their first part of the Linux challenge, the Daily Driver Linux challenge, and some people have some opinions on it. And so last night I put out a little video that asked you if you wanted to watch reaction response thing, and that video is now sitting at like 700 or 800 views. So fuck it, I guess. So, you know, let's just go ahead and get started on watching the video. We'll talk about more context and stuff as we get further into the video, so let's just go ahead and get started.
Embarrassingly, I have never actually made an earnest attempt to daily drive Linux, and one of the reasons for that is the utterly paralyzing number of choices you have to make before you even get started.
So yeah, that was actually one of my big issues when I first started deciding which distro to run on my computer. That is one of the biggest issues of deciding to run Linux is what distro are you going to go with. Most people will just say, oh, just go with Pop! OS since that's the most user-friendly of them all, and I would agree with that sentiment, but you know, just the fact that you have to go online and look up, you know, Linux distros, and you get like maybe 200 distros in response, and they're all varied in different ways, is just kind of, it's not great. A lot of the points that Linus makes in this video are about the user experience of Linux and how it ain't great, and I will agree with that. Linux in general just is not the most user-friendly experience of any distribution or any OS that I've ever used. You know, it's just the way it is, and if Linux wants to get anywhere in the public space, they need to improve their user experience. So, you know, let's continue moving on.
Now, I could just call on industry contacts or even use internal resources to make these decisions for me. But the point of this challenge is that Luke and I should be using the exact same resources that anyone else would have.
See, what's actually interesting about that is that when I first switched over to Pop! OS, I actually used Anthony's video as sort of a guide and a step-by-step walkthrough of how to run Linux properly. And that was a massive help. Like, I feel like if Linus actually had access to that video that Anthony made, I think his experience would be way, way smoother. But, you know, if he did, that would be kind of considered cheating to a lot of people, so it's understandable, but just how it is.
Speaking on behalf of normies, I don't want a dozen novel ways to do the same thing. I want one fast, easy one. I mean, it's horrible when Microsoft scatters system settings all over the place. I think we all agree on that. And so we should all agree that it's horrible when anybody else does it. I mean, I'm the kind of person who doesn't even rename my video game characters because it makes it a nightmare to look anything up if I get stuck.
So that is also, you know, a big thing. I am both a fan and not a fan of the approach that Linux has, where it's like, oh, you can do anything in a million different ways, and it's, I agree with Linus, like, I just want the one thing. When I approach problems in Linux personally as a new user, I usually just find one way to do it, and then I just stick with that for the entire time. Does that mean that I will never change how I solve problems? No. If anybody adds a GUI to FFmpeg that lets me encode my audio properly without having to type in a bunch of fucking command lines and shit, I'm gonna take it. But for the time being, it's just not, you know, it's not kind of a thing. And that actually brings me into, like, there's a reason why when I make my videos, I don't focus on the command line. I don't focus on anything console related, terminal related, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Just because, again, that kind of thing is paralyzing to an average user. Like, you can't just expect somebody to be okay with typing on terminal commands the entire time. Let's make a spectrum right now, where 1 is, quote, I run a Lenovo laptop, and 10 is, fuck a GUI, I only use the terminal. I would consider myself to be like maybe a 6.5, maybe a 7 on this spectrum. Definitely not the biggest power user of all time, but I'm also not afraid to get my hands dirty when I need to. And not a lot of people are willing to do that. Most people are gonna fall within like maybe a 4 or less, if you're even lucky to get a 4. Dude, the one thing that's preventing a friend of mine from switching over to Linux is just because he doesn't want to install it. That's literally it. He does not want to go through the hassle of installing it. So, like, it's just a very simple thing that's preventing a lot of people from switching over, just because they're just not power users, and that's just something that they don't want to have to deal with, you know? They're slightly below average, which there's nothing wrong with doing that. You've got other shit to worry about in your life. But, you know, when they're below, you know, a certain level of computer usage, they're not going to want to deal with it. And they're just going to want to just turn on their computer and have it work. And that's kind of why I like the System 76 approach, where they essentially sell computers on their own that come pre-installed with Pop! OS. The problem is that they're expensive. So, you know, it's not going to be the most accessible thing in the world. I think if System 76 really wanted to get adoption from normies, I think they should sell like really bare bones entry-level computers that come pre-installed with Pop! OS. And Linux is super lightweight anyway, so it can run on like a fucking toaster, you know? So I feel like if there was a company out there like System 76 who did something like that, I think that would go a long way in normifying Linux, if that makes any sense.
In spite of its spectacularly stupid name, pop!_OS topped
Good choice.
Just about every listicle that I found, and legitimately has some compelling selling points.
I, on the other hand, after a lot of deliberation, decided to go with the daring, the uncompromising Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop environment.
So that actually is pretty interesting in and of itself. If I were to switch up to a different desktop environment...
Nice!
What the fuck was that? Did someone just follow me on Twitch? Someone just fucking followed me on Twitch in the middle of this. What? Okay, a little bit of pulling back the cover a bit. I'm actually running 2 instances of OBS right now, and yeah, I guess it just played 2 of my notifications of someone following me on Twitch. So that's crazy. That's actually a good choice though. If I were to switch to a different distro, I would probably choose Mint. Like, if I ever get a second computer up and running and I want to mess around with any other type of distro, while Arch and its several flavors look compelling, I did a little bit more digging into how Arch works as a platform, and I personally am not down with it. Maybe if I had like, you know, a piece of shit laptop just sitting around where I could like really mess around with it. Maybe if I got like a framework laptop or something, I could throw Arch on it and feel just fine, but definitely not something that I would want to be using long term. But if I had to switch to any other distro at the moment, it probably would be Mint. It just looks interesting, you know? Looks like a solid distro to choose. I mean, they're both Ubuntu based, so of course they're gonna be the most stable choices.
So I'm not scared of figuring out how to install a GPU driver or use a package manager. I'm comfortable getting my hands dirty with Grub, but that doesn't mean I'm not a little scared of you. I'm pretty technical and I work in development every day, but hardcore Linux chads are absolutely terrifying. You scare me, and I really want this to go well because I still want you to like me when this is all over.
Yeah. Unironically, I used to lurk on the Linux gaming subreddit, and after reading through some comments, this happened over the course of like a couple months, but I just realized how much of a fucking cesspool that subreddit is. And I know that there are other subreddits out there, yada yada yada, but like, I mean, let's be real, my first mistake was actually going onto Reddit in the first place, so, you know. Linux users are the special kind of toxic. The ones that are super gatekeepy on a lot of things and still want you to do the thing that they're gatekeeping you on. It's so weird. It's so wild, but not everybody is like that. I should be very clear. Most of the people who've come on my videos specifically have been really chill and really supportive and really helpful. So I genuinely want to thank anyone who's watching this video who was like supportive of my switching over to Linux. You know, I do appreciate it.
obviously I'm not 100% committed to this yet. So my plan is to remove my existing SSD from the system.
Can I just stop and like just say that rack-mounted computers are fucking awesome, and I want one really badly? One of these days, I'm gonna have a fucking setup like that. I'm gonna have rack-mounted PCs that are flowing through the fucking cables in my house, and it's gonna do all that cool shit. It's gonna be a pain in the ass to set up, and it's gonna be a pain in the ass to move if I ever have to, but... oh, it looks so nice!
I'm gonna right-click right below the Mint logo. Nothing shows up.
This is a crazy bug. Like...
there's the menu. If I try to
I
mouse
run
over
dual
these, I can't
monitors,
select
and
them.
this hasn't happened to me
But
yet,
if I
but I
move
guess
my
I'm
mouse
running Pop
back
OS,
to
which is more stable.
below
I don't
this M,
fucking know.
There it is.
Linux is weird, man.
Found it.
Linux is weird.
Okay, so, and we're there. Check video drivers. I knew I was going to run into that installing Mint instead of Pop OS, but that is a challenge I have decided to undertake.
So installing Linux and getting it to post and getting it to boot and everything, you know, that's relatively easy. I feel like that's an easy thing to do, to just get an install of fucking Mint or Arch or whatever you're running, OpenSUS, whatever. Installing Linux itself is simple and easy to do, and anybody can do it. Actually setting it up to make it work on your system and make it work for your needs, however, that's an entirely different story. And that's where the frustration comes in. It's not in actually just getting it running, it's, okay, let's get the programs I need now. That's where the fucked up stuff comes in.
First order of business is to get our mouse speed down from over 9,000 to something more reasonable. That seems more like it. Also, why the hell is this on by default?
Okay, so I'm actually gonna like cut in a little bit and say that I'm not a fan of Pop Cosmic. It's too Mac for me, you know what I mean? Like, it's very nice for the artsy-fartsy types, for normies, for regular people who want to come in and just use a computer. Like, they've done a very good job at getting a somewhat solid user experience on Pop OS. But I hate it. I don't know. I just don't like the way that apps are laid out, and like the way that like windows are laid out and stuff like that. I don't know. This is a weird thing that I have. I know that Linus later, we'll get to that. I know that Linus later switched to Manjaro, and I'm curious if either him or Luke are going to be switching desktop environments. I don't think they're going to do that, but it'd be interesting to see if that's a thing and what their experience would be on switching desktop environments. Because from my experience, it was relatively easy. Like, I switched from the Pop DE over to KDE Plasma, so I don't know. I like KDE Plasma more.
I will definitely need Steam. Failed to install Steam.
Uh-oh.
Morning, you were trying to remove?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Essential packages. What are you talking about? I've done nothing with this other than install that hard info thing. You know what's hilarious? The last time I tried to do anything on Ubuntu, I ran into this exact same thing. I was told, it's super simple. You just install it. No, you do not. This is stupid. Apparently, this is the solution. And I have to type, yes, do as I say in order to install it. And maybe it will install and launch now. What is the point of having a... oh.
Uh-oh. Okay. So, the reason why this happened, and I'm sure everybody's already covered this in their, you know, Linux reaction videos, but the reason why this has happened is because that System 76 unfortunately left a catastrophic dependency bug in the version of Pop OS that they've launched with. It's been fixed, but, you know, Linus did not update his system, and that's not an intuitive thing. Maybe if there was a pop-up that was like, hey, you know, do a fresh system update, and maybe if they had like a button or something to let like users know, like, hey, before you install anything, you really should do a fresh update for the latest packages and everything. Like, maybe just to like simplify its speech so it doesn't say something like, oh, update your packages. Be like, oh, just do a system update and that would be more stable, but, you know, whatever the case may be, unfortunately, due to a bug that System76 unfortunately left in, Linus uninstalled his entire desktop environment. So, you know, kind of wild.
Okay, so we've got the Novu, or however that's pronounced, open source driver. Fantastic, happy they made that. But we are going to try to move to the proprietary Nvidia 470 driver.
So, a little bit of a story for this video. I actually tried to install the Nvidia 490 drivers, because the 470 drivers are the ones that everybody uses, right? It's the easiest to install. And so I was thinking like, well, what if I were to try to go and install the 490 drivers? That was not a fun time. I ended up not doing it because I looked into the steps required, and it pretty much involves you shutting down your entire desktop environment, and that sounds like a fucking nightmare, right? If anything, like the only reason I would ever install those 490 drivers is on a spare machine and for a video. So I guess I'll do that if I ever get a spare machine set up. Man, I really gotta fucking work on that. I have a whole fucking machine sitting over in my closet that's just kind of sitting there collecting dust. So maybe I should get that one up and running for more Linux videos, Sound off in the comments if you want me to check out any distributions on a spare machine I got. That I feel like everyone has done the what is this distribution and what is the experience of using it, but I guess people just want opinions of some schmuck on the internet. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, let me know so I can properly spend what little money I have to make my videos better. Kind of a little aside here. I'm totally okay with using the Pop Shop as my main thing. When I switched over to KDE Plasma, it came with the Discover package manager, I guess, and I use that occasionally, but for the most part, I'm totally okay using the Pop Shop because, oh no, the packages are slightly out of date. That's fine. That's fine for me, and I'm like a 7 out of 10 in terms of computer power users, so it's definitely fine for like the majority of computer users in general. Complaining that the Pop Shop is bad because the packages are slightly out of date, it's not that big of a deal, let's be perfectly honest. Anyway, it's just my opinions on the whole thing. You're basically getting my opinions on Linux in general throughout this video, so
Pressing the reset button on my computer did not, in fact, allow it to come back to life. Let's try an all the way off and start again. Not that I think that will do anything different from the reset button. Man, if I manage to completely brick this install in 15 minutes, that might be a new personal best for me.
I like how it's Linus, too. Like, it had to be the biggest public showcase of Linux to the widest possible audience of tech users, and it had to fuck up in this one specific way during this one specific moment that is crucial to pretty much any and all existing, potential, and future Linux users that could possibly exist. Bad look in general. However, I will say that Pop! OS has been very good to me in the past few months that I've been using it. It's just an unfortunate timing thing, I guess.
And I think that's where I'm gonna have to leave it for tonight, because I found this other post saying, hey, yeah, I had this problem. This was not easily solvable, so had to fresh install. I don't think I'm going with Pop! OS again. I mean, you guys were there for the whole thing. That was utterly ridiculous.
I can't blame Linus for switching. I really can't. Like, that is a completely understandable reason for like, I'm gonna look somewhere else. Like, I'm not gonna blame him for it.
To be clear, it's entirely possible that I did something completely wrong, not knowing what I was doing, and I'm responsible for the OS getting bricked. I just also think that with you guys along for the ride, the things that I did were not entirely ridiculous or unreasonable. So you can be mad at me for breaking it, but just at least acknowledge that it could have happened to anyone who's not already fully well-versed in the black arts of Linux.
So yeah, that actually is entirely accurate. I've seen Linus get tons of hate, especially on the Linux subreddits that I used to go on to. And it's just crazy to me that, you know, there are genuine problems with the user experience and the way that Linux runs. And there are those especially magically toxic people who will just always hand wave whatever problem just because it's what they're used to and it's what they know, and it shouldn't change because it's what they know. And it's like, wow, just I don't know, just kind of amazing. Just kind of amazing that that's the case.
Why are the two columns open source and installed? Does this mean, is this proprietary? Because that's what I think I told it to do. X server settings.
Okay, that actually, here's a little bit of a little frustration I've been running to with Linux as of late. And it's only really come up in something like RetroArch. When you open up a window, it really likes to open the new instance of a window in the top right corner of the screen, right? And that makes sense. That's not a bad thing. Except that the top right in my entire setup of monitors is right here, and I game over here on my ultra wide. So when I have my fucking RetroArch window like maxed out on this monitor, and I hit, you know, open Paper Mario or whatever, and it closes the window and opens Paper Mario right here, it's a tad frustrating. It's just, yeah, you want Linux for Dummies 3, here you go. Here's just my fucking vlog on how Linux has been going for me.
Now, the game I've been playing recently is Cave Story Plus. Is this Linux? Just like native freaking let's go, boys? Oh wait, my sound still isn't working. Yeah, I still have no sound. Honestly, I'm kind of willing to live with that. Let's just it's on the right.
What the fuck,
and
man?
No dice on the.
It had to be Linus, right? Like, Luke was just flying through it, just breezing through the whole thing, just got his fucking shit set up, and then just installed FTL and got it running, and then Linus destroyed his DE, reinstalled to a different distro entirely, couldn't get his sound working, and then his game looked like that. This is just like, you know what? I guess this video actually shows like the wide range of exactly how good or bad an install of a specific distro could go, just because like it really is that crazy and that wide where it's like, yeah, you could just be able to just do it like that, or you could be Linus and run into all these problems. So I guess, you know, if you're willing to make that roll of the cosmic dice, yeah, feel free to try to install Linux and just try it out. I don't know. So, this is a very good video. I like a lot of things that Linus produces. He makes good stuff, and he puts a lot of detail, and his whole team are just good at what they do, right? I don't foresee Linus sticking with Linux, like after this whole challenge is over. And I wouldn't blame him at all if he decided to go back to Windows. You know, just kind of how it is. After that kind of a first impression, I would not blame anyone at all for, you know, wanting to go back to what they know, you know. As if you're trying to convince somebody to switch over to Linux for whatever reason, like, you can't, I don't think you can convince somebody to do that. It's like trying to convince somebody to switch from Mac to Windows, you know? Like, unless they want to, you know, for whatever reason, they're not gonna do it, you know? Like I said, I have a friend who probably would do just fine switching over to Linux, but he just doesn't want to because he knows Windows and he doesn't want to go through the trouble. And I can't blame him for it at all, you know? I can't blame anybody who doesn't want to switch over to Linux. It just comes down to like a philosophy of how you want to run your computer. And if you're totally fine with just how Windows works and you don't care about the privacy breaches that Microsoft has built into Windows 10 and Windows 11, and you don't care about any of the quote unquote bad things that go on in Windows, that's your deal, you know. That's your decision, and I'm not gonna hold that against you, you know. And I don't think any regular sane Linux user would blame you for that either. It's just kind of how it is. I think switching over to Linux was a good thing for me specifically, but, you know, like Linus perfectly demonstrated with this video, sometimes that's not gonna go very well. So, you know, it just depends on how nitty gritty and how, like, under the hood you want to get, you know? It's the same kind of thing where it's like, I don't want to fucking work on my own car. I'll just take it to the mechanic. They know what they're doing. You know, it's the same shit. You know, I don't want to work on my computer. Let me just take it to Geek Squad, even though Geek Squad is kind of a scam, but whatever. You know, wrapping up this video, like I said, this video is great. Linus and his team know what they're doing. I'm very excited to see the rest of this. I've been watching the WAN show and catching up on their Linux challenge through that, so I kind of expect what's coming. But I'm really excited to see what everybody else thinks of this whole thing and this whole situation. If you would like to watch this video yourself, because I know I had to cut a lot of this stuff out, there will be a link in the description. And you know what? Fuck it, just a link in the card up here, wherever the fuck it's gonna be. Yeah, you can go there and watch the full video, and I would highly recommend you go watch the full video and do a little bit of research on your own. Do you guys want me to do the rest of the series as it comes out? Because, like, that sounds like fun, I guess. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here for Linux in general, now that someone like Linus has, like, really given proper cover to, and his whole fucking company, because they're, like, the biggest names in tech news and tech entertainment right now. So, like, if a random schmuck looks at someone like Luke, who just flew through it and just got games working, maybe they'll be more inclined to switch over to Linux. But, you know, then they'll see how Linus's whole thing went, and maybe they'll reconsider. So it's definitely going to be interesting. This is not the last time we'll see this, like, sort of big surge in Linux, because obviously the Steam Deck is going to be coming out soon. Well, I mean, it got delayed. At time of record, let me carbon date this video. Earlier today, the Steam Deck got delayed a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. You know, shit happens, and with the world that we live in right now and the tech shortages that are happening, I can't blame Valve at all for, you know, having to delay the system. But eventually, when that thing finally drops, that's going to be a huge boost in the average number of Linux users. And maybe Valve has curated their own little walled garden that'll show people that it really isn't that scary. I'm not too convinced that throwing people into Arch is the best decision, but I think Valve went through all possible situations, and they're really trying to get that user experience as good as they possibly can, because they can afford to do that. So yeah, you know, it all will just come back to the Steam Deck for me, because that's like the biggest, most exciting thing for me in terms of Linux. So yeah, I am excited to continue running Linux personally. I'm excited to see Linus and Luke's experiences, and I'm excited to see if any of you switch over. I know I saw one person in the comments who I managed to convince to switch over to Linux. So I you know what, dude, that specific person, you know who you are. If you're watching this video, or fuck it, if anybody watching this video has switched over to Linux because of my videos or even Linus's videos, feel free to sound off. Let me know how your experience has been going. Maybe I can do a video in the future talking about, you know, other people's experiences and cataloging it, and maybe making, like, data points out of it or some shit. I don't fucking know. Maybe that'd be fun. I don't know. Like, I want to focus on more videos on Linux for the average user, for the normie, per se, because that's, like, kind of the problem with Linux videos nowadays, where a lot of them are geared towards people who already know what Linux is. So I want to be one of those creators like Anthony, who kind of makes it approachable. Again, that's why I don't talk about the terminal in my videos, just because that brings a whole mess of connotations where it's like, oh man, do I have to learn how to use this? And no, you really don't, but it's good to learn it anyway. But you're not going to be able to convince someone by saying that kind of thing. So just don't talk about it, and talk about Linux in the sense of running it like you would Windows. Just ease it in, ease that stuff in. And then, after they've run Linux for a little bit, then you can start introducing the terminal, then you can start introducing the package manager, then you can start introducing other things, I saw one guy in another comment saying that they would not recommend Arch to anybody unless they've got like a couple years of Debian under their belt, and I can completely understand that. That's honestly kind of how I'm going to run with this whole thing, where I'm not going to switch over to Arch anytime soon. But eventually, I will want to mess with it. And if I set up another computer, the first distro I'm going to check out after this is definitely going to be Mint. I want to see how that Cinnamon desktop environment works. I want to see how Mint runs under the hood. And, it's going to be Debian based. So it's going to be, I'm going to be more familiar with it than I would anything like Arch, And just for the sake of a little teaser, maybe we got future videos coming out relatively soon. Maybe we got more stuff. That'll be interesting. Anyway, I'm gonna finally wrap up this video. I've been recording for like a fucking hour. This video could not be possible without the help of the executive lads, otherwise known as my patrons, who help out, who just help me out in general and support me and keep me afloat. Kind of. I do appreciate all the support, and if you want to support me on Patreon, you get access to all these videos, including videos like these, a day early, as well as behind-the-scenes content and bonus videos. And I will definitely be doing more of those bonus videos in the future because I've kind of neglected that aspect of being a patron of mine. Oops. But anyway, thanks again to the patrons. Thank you for watching and making it to the end of the video. You have no idea how much it helps to just watch to the end of the video. And yes, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that if you ever decide to switch to Linux, if you haven't already, that you have a good time and it treats you well.